Okay. Can everybody see the screen? You can nod. Yes. Okay, cool. Okay. So, well, let me do that. All right, hopefully that's better. Okay. So, I chose this topic about how to cope with overeating because I was reading this book and it was actually the Weight Loss Surgery Coping Companion. And so whether or not, anybody on this call has had bariatric surgery, you probably know somebody that has. It just seems like it has become such a common thing. In our culture of, whether it's the gastric bypass, gastric sleeve, the lap band surgery. And so, I got this book because I've run into so many people having had surgery myself that have just had, continued to have issues around their weight, both physically and emotionally, even after surgery. And so people that, have lost hundreds of pounds, I lost 100, I gained half of it back. There's a lot of, you can see the little subtitle is a practical guide for coping with post-surgery emotions. And so, most of the book is really about kind of your mindset, and even after you've had surgery, how to cope with some of the emotions that come along with that. And a lot of the emotions that are those that go along with, after you've had surgery are the same ones that you deal with before you've had surgery. So, this book, if anybody, again, if you've had surgery and this is something you might be interested in, or somebody that is either considering having surgery or maybe they already have, this book has some really good stuff in it. It's some of the chapters I'll just read off to you in the table of contents: how to cope with loneliness, how to cope with anger, anxiety, depression. One that I was super interested in is identity confusion, which, might sound odd to you, but when you're, I was severely overweight for probably 20 to 25 years, and literally felt like a different person in that body. And, when I lost 100 pounds, I definitely went through this period of time where I didn't know who I was. I'll say we, often, like, we tend to take on personality traits and characteristics. Like, we feel like our self-worth is dependent on what our bodies look like. And so when that all changes, it's kind of like, okay, well, what do I do now with all the emotional stuff that that I still have? So I might have lost 100 pounds, but I haven't addressed any of these issues that caused me to overeat in the first place. So I think this is a good book. It's really got some good stuff in it. And it also has some good meditations in the back of the book, and also like some eating exercises. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that that really kind of stood out to me. As I was reading, and I've been reading another book that I've been doing the live videos on in LiveFULLy, on this book called The Untrue Story of You. And there's some really big similarities, and that's why I kind of thought this would be great, is to kind of tie them both together. So this book talks about the Nourish technique. And so it's a mindfulness-based technique that allows you to avoid emotional eating and nourish yourself both physically and emotionally. And I'm like, if you guys know me, I'm a total word person. I want to know exactly what the word means. If it's going to be the center of attention or of the idea, like, I want to know exactly what it means. So I looked it up. And so the word nourish means to provide food or other substances necessary for growth, health, and good condition. And so when you go back up to that first bullet, and, this book is talking about nourishing yourself physically and emotionally, think about growth, health, and good condition. both for our physical bodies as well as emotionally. So I think, this technique has some really good tips in it. And so I'll just keep on going. What is mindfulness? So this is a mindfulness-based technique. And this idea of slowing down has literally just been like clobbering me over the head in so many areas of my life and of my learning. What does it mean to be mindful? Is taking a break from all the external stimuli around you and tune into your internal experience. So turn off the TV, like put your phone down, get away from your computer, take, 10, 15 minutes away from the kids, and be mindful about, and then these are the two primary ideas of the book. Am I really physically hungry? Or am I emotionally hungry? And so we'll kind of go into, the differences and how you can really tell. And then the second thing is, what am I craving? And so we'll talk a little bit about cravings too. But, going back to this mindfulness idea and slowing down, Brian Hubbard, who is the author of the other book that I mentioned, The Untrue Story of You, his whole book is exactly about this, is actually, slowing down, stopping yourself to, stopping yourself to really notice things. Notice when you apply it to eating, like, what am I doing? Like, what I'm grabbing for some food right now. And it's like, am I doing that just out of habit? Am I really thinking about what I'm eating? Like, is this nourishing? Is this for my growth, health, and good condition? If it's not, then what are we doing? And so, but we move so fast, through the day. We're going a mile a minute, and it's like, you sit down to eat and do a million other things. Can everybody mute themselves that's coming on? Thank you. And so, we're just so busy doing so many different things. 1 second here. Sorry, guys. I need to adjust this. Okay. That we don't stop to really think about what we're doing. It's just this habit. And so this overeating, becomes something that we're just literally like not even paying attention to. I mean, truly. And so, really stopping to think every time you get ready to eat. And I'm thinking, like, man, this is really going to be a challenge. But every single time, asking these two questions: am I really hungry physically? And then, if I am, what is it that I'm craving? Rather than just reaching for the quickest, closest thing that comes to us, is really, and that requires us to talk to our bodies. And seriously, like, I have, there's a vision board above my head that you can't see all of it, but on there I have, what is your body telling you? And our bodies, you guys, will tell us a whole lot if we really slow down and stop and listen to what it's trying to say. So it's really, there's some interesting points in here that we'll go over about, like, what am I craving? But really stop to ask your body, like, what do I want right now? Rather than, like, oh, it's just, it's time to eat. Like, let's go grab something. And then the last thing on this one, what does eating only until you're satisfied really mean? So I would see that all the time in things that I would read. I would hear people talk about that in a support group before I had my surgery. There was this, people were always talking about, like, stop when you're full, stop when you're full. Well, part of, and if anybody is like me and has battled, with this overeating issue, is that the fullness, like, come emotionally. Like, we might be full physically, but emotionally, we're not paying attention to that full feeling physically. So when our bellies are full, like, we're still eating because the emotional part of us is still trying to fill. right? Like that void is still there, whatever we're trying to deal with, whether we're stressed out that day, whether it's something has upset us. There's a bunch of different reasons that we'll go over on this call about like what are the different emotions that kind of send us into this habit of overeating. But what and I don't know, I think it's Tanny Miller Kabbalah. So she's the author of this book. What she talks about here is her definition of eating only until you're satisfied means, do I have a sense of physical fullness, but could still get up and comfortably dance? Or I could still get up and comfortably take a brisk walk. So it's like, if it's kind of a good way to just do a check-in with yourself, because I know if I'm sitting down to eat and I just want to enjoy eating and it's not about actually just satisfying my hunger, you overeat and overeat and overeat until it's kind of like too late, right? It's like, how many times have you sat down for a holiday dinner and it's like, oh my God, I can't even, like, it's so overboard that we don't catch ourselves or pay attention until it's kind of gone, way too far. And so kind of doing this check-in throughout the meal of, do I feel like I could still get up and take a really quick walk? Or do I feel like I could get up and just start dancing right now? If you're like way beyond that, way past it, it's like, okay, it's beyond time to stop. And then, no more cleaning your plate. I just kind of added this one in because I grew up like that, and really, dealing with how, coping with overeating and not like getting out of that habit of overeating kind of requires us to undo a lot of the stuff that we grew up with, like that we do without paying attention. It's like, if I have a full plate of food, whether I'm at somebody's house and I'm eating, or I sit down to, eat on my own, there's something in my mind that says that I have to eat everything that's on my plate. And I will sit there and like know that I'm just like I'm so full. But when I'm still looking at food that's left on the plate, it's like my mind wants to continue to eat until it's clean. It's probably some of my OCD as well. Nice, clean, happy plate. But really it's so important to notice that it's like, okay, leftovers are okay. Like the fact that the rest of this plate is going to go in the fridge, for later, is okay. Like I don't have to absolutely, completely gorge, like just to say that I've, cleaned the plate. I'm no longer 7 years old. And my parents are telling me, eat everything on that plate. There's starving children in China or wherever. Okay, so let's go over kind of each of her, like the two main points. Again, like am I really physically hungry was number one. So what kind of hungry am I? So physically, she breaks it down. Like, do I have this hollow feeling in my stomach? Am I feeling kind of dizzy? Which obviously could be related to blood sugar, which is related to, food. Am I feeling kind of weak, or do I have this like nauseous feeling? Like I definitely I'm hungry, need something to eat. And like notice too, like, do you eat when it's time? So I think with family, like as, a single person, I eat whenever I feel like it. There is no like, well, it's 5 o'clock and it's, I just have a husband and kids and like, this is the time that we all sit down to dinner. So I can imagine that, for different people, this is different, like having a set time to eat. And so, but this is a great check-in that, is it just time to sit down and eat and you're not really hungry, but you're doing that because that's just what the rest of the family is doing. And like, it's okay to not have a full plate of food if you're not that hungry, like sit down and enjoy the time together, but like notice that, I'm not really that hungry right now. So I'm not going to actually fix myself a full plate of food. So really just kind of checking in, like if it's physical, if it's emotional, hunger. So like, okay, I don't feel a hollow feeling in my stomach. I'm not dizzy. I'm not weak, and I'm not nauseous. So if I'm saying, oh man, I'm so hungry, but I've done this check-in and I don't have any of those things, then the next question is, am I feeling sad? Am I stressed out about something? Am I just like, I wandering around and I need something to do, because I'm bored? Loneliness, agitation, like these are just some of the things that like act like, and like, it's not, I don't know how to, for me, these are all things that like, yeah, like I've heard them before, but to really stop and actually do it, right? Like it's time to eat. Like, do I have the hollow feeling in my stomach? Am I dizzy? Am I weak? Am I nauseous? No. Okay. How am I feeling? Am I sad? Like, am I stressed out? What am I thinking about? This is the whole idea of slowing down, this mindfulness. I know Casey jumped on here, like, it was probably close to a year ago when I was first visiting in North Carolina, and we would go on walks. And one of the walks that we went, we would chat, talk, the whole time around the block. And this one time she was like, okay, well, we're going to practice mindfulness, like mindfulness meditation. And so we're going to do this walk, but not say anything. And I was like, all right, that's going to be weird. But whatever, I'll try it. And so, it was like, just pay attention to nature, to the trees and to the leaves, and, what do they have to say to us? Like, what downloads are we getting from God as we, walk around the block? And so this mindfulness of kind of tuning in, if we remember, like at that last slide, it said, really tuning into like what's happening internally. So as we relate this to overeating, what can I do to soothe myself that does not involve food? So if we've already done this check-in, okay, I'm not physically hungry, so it's clearly an emotion that's driving me to overeat. Some of the examples that she gives in this book, listen to music, go for a walk, rest. Sometimes we eat like we're just like, go on the go. We're tired. And so we just stop and eat. And it's like, why am I eating? Like, I really just need to take a nap. I need to lay down and relax and rest. Right. So she talks about journaling, which is always great, like journaling about what are our emotions telling us. Relax, meditate, and pray. And then I added my post and live fully. If there's something that's just, there's a day that you're having and it's a struggle, like that's what the group is for, is, man, you guys, I'm having a day. I really, am feeling like, going in on these Oreos, and I'm not hungry, and I'm trying to figure out like emotionally, what's going on. But really, kind of take yourself through these things, one at a time. And when you do identify like, oh no, I'm definitely not physically hungry, it is an emotional hunger, then, the next step is to like, okay, well, let's deal with that. What can I do to eliminate like feeling sad or stressed out or bored, and like, so trying some of these other things to soothe ourselves, like without food, is really, I think a great thing to try. So moving on to the second main point of her book is, what is my body craving? And, cravings are a huge issue when it comes to compulsive overeating, because like it's mental too, right? It's not just like, what is my body craving, but like, what is my brain telling me that that I want, just out of, past habits. And so what her suggestion is to ask your body what it wants. Consider these foods, imagine eating them. What does my body need in order to feel nourished? And I capitalize that word nourished again, going back to the beginning. Nourishment is, really doing what's good and healthy for our bodies, for us to grow. And so, as we're thinking about like, man, I'm hungry, I am definitely hungry. What is your body telling you? Ask your body that question. Talk to your body. Do I want dairy? Like, am I craving vegetables. And like that at first, I'm like, well, that's hilarious. I mean, like who craves that? Like you crave ice cream, right? You crave sugar, you crave candy, like who craves veggies? But honestly, and I wouldn't say so much before surgery, but for some reason after surgery, I have these days where if I haven't had vegetables or salad, like in a certain number of days, like I crave a salad. And I don't know if that's true for any of you guys, or, the same, like if it's, sometimes fruit, like if I haven't had fresh fruit, like it's all I can think about, in the same way that it might be ice cream or Oreos or anything else, that it's like, man, I just want some raspberries, like that, like my body. And I think that's, really becoming more in tune with what is your body asking for? Like, are you low on protein that you're like, man, I just want like a big piece of toast with like peanut butter slathered all over. Like, if you really, really listen and, slow down, get quiet. If you want something salty, a handful of pretzels, like if you want something sweet, dark chocolate, but have a little bit of it. So it's kind of like make a list of these things, rather than, it's just so easy for us to grab the quickest thing. That's close by, the easiest thing. I don't want to cook anything. I just want to grab something to eat. And we don't even think about what we want. Like, what is my body asking for right now? So I thought that was really interesting. I also looked up some stuff online, and this, there's some info here that was in an article in Psychology Today about, addictive, yummy foods, which is really similar to alcoholics and drug addicts when it comes to craving things. And it's this obsession, this kind of mental obsession that we get around, like, you just can't think about anything else but like what food we're going to eat. And then this whole idea of like our bodies or our brains kind of tricking us into like, well, it's just this one time today, just this once. And then like, I'm going to get back on it tomorrow. And like, just that once, like how many times throughout the week does that happen? It's like, okay, just this once, just this twice, just this 5 times. And what's interesting is that, it says that the more times you actually cave into that just this once, it's even a stronger craving that continues. So it could be, later that day or the next day. But it like keeps, like it makes it worse, to cave into it. And I know, having battled, alcoholism, I've heard the same thing about relapses. I've not had a relapse, in over a year, but that it's actually, from going to meetings, I hear people talk about how like if you do, like the desire, that obsession to have a drink is even stronger than it was, the last time that you had a drink. And so it's interesting that this article really compares, addictive food, which, I've also heard that sugar is even more addictive than drugs and alcohol. So, for sure that's, something that lie of just this once is something that, we need to be aware of. Again, like slow down, like hear yourself, myself, when we're kind of talking to ourselves, having that little chat of the devil on your shoulder, like, oh, okay, it's not going to be that big of a deal if I just do it, this one time. It's like, notice that, and then make a decision consciously about whether or not that's something you want to do. So it's really all about, getting out of the habitual, subconscious, like just doing things without thinking about it, slowing down and really practicing this mindfulness around what we're doing literally every single time we want to eat. Like, what am I doing with this meal? Like, what am I eating? What am I craving? Am I physically hungry? Or is it just emotional? Or is it just time to eat? And then prevention.com, I also found out, these 4 questions that they said to ask yourself, am I stressed out? Have I been eating less than usual? Like, so is there kind of a legitimate reason why I'm having cravings? Am I getting enough sleep? So not getting enough sleep is actually, a contributor to craving certain foods, the yummy, addictive foods, especially. And then, or, am I being a creature of habit? So, when we think about like, man, I'm craving such and such, like, think about what's actually driving those cravings. And then finally, I went to isogenicshealth.net. So I know that some people on this call may not be Isogenics users, and that is absolutely okay. This is just a great resource that if you are looking for medical related articles, this is an amazing website that there's a keyword search bar that you can type in anything. And so, I was looking online and it's like, I'm looking at all of these different resources and it's like, well, let's see what Isogenics has to say about cravings and about, the products and how do they actually affect our cravings. And so that's all I typed into the search bar was cravings, and it pulled up about 5 different articles immediately. And I pulled up this one that actually had a lot to do with like late night cravings, because that's one that I particularly struggle with is at night, and even like throughout the night, and lack of sleep definitely applies to me. So that's another, that's kind of like a double whammy for me about like kind of wanting to get up and eat at night. But this is just a piece of a longer article that talks about, being able to avoid late night binging. And so they talk about eating a breakfast that's really rich in protein. And so there's a lot more information there about like breakfast and how important it's like, it's not just a myth, but breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It truly, like, there is a study that was done that pulls the information into this article about people who ate breakfast that had that was high in protein. And some of the other things that they pulled out is fiber. So simple sugars found in white flour products. So, you go for a pastry, a donut at the coffee shop, with your Starbucks, is really contributing to these hunger pangs, not long after you have it. So, really thinking about what can I have that's higher in fiber. And Isogenics does have fiber bars. There is a good amount of fiber in the shakes. I think down at the end where it talks about what's in 8 grams, there's 8 grams of fiber in a shake. And so, that's something that really does impact our cravings. Don't forget the fat. So this, fat has been a big topic lately about how, we've been conditioned to think that fat is bad. It's like starting in the 80s, everything was low fat, fat free. The whole idea that fat, Casey was talking earlier today about, wouldn't it be great if fat had a different name? Like the fat that we consume, because like us saying, like I feel fat or I need to get rid of this fat, and then fat that we actually consume, it's like it automatically has this negative connotation, but fat is actually really important for our bodies in a lot of different ways. I just read recently that it really contributes to healthy brain functioning. And so, really don't be afraid to get some fat into your system. In this study actually shows that it can be beneficial in helping to control our cravings. 60-minute rule. So don't, sit down, eat, and like take away this idea of eating being an event. You guys, before surgery, I used to look at eating as an event every day. Like I looked forward to it. I thought about what it was going to be. I would sit down and like plan like an event. Like you would sit down and like watch a movie. It was like, oh, I'm gonna like sit down and like have, this dinner that I had been thinking about all day. And after I had surgery, and I wasn't able to eat that amount anymore. Like I couldn't eat a whole pot of macaroni and cheese. I couldn't eat ice cream after I had the macaroni and cheese. After I couldn't do that, and it might sound silly if you guys haven't had surgery, or it might sound silly to you, but I'm telling you, it's real as anything. I actually mourned that this idea of like food was not an event. Truly, like after surgery, my stomach was so small that I could only have a few bites, and there was no, like, emotionally, it was over. Like I would have a few bites and I was stuffed, absolutely stuffed, to the point that, like, if I had one more bite, I would vomit and I would feel awful. And so it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? Like now that food is no longer this event, like, what am I supposed to do with that? And so, it's really, becomes a challenge. And I get that. I think that that's something that, a lot of people that are dealing with this issue of, compulsive overeating is getting out of the habit of having a meal, be this event, that might, take a long time, or we draw it out, or we snack all day, whatever the case may be. And so, that was something that really kind of stood out to me. So, I want to stop sharing really quick. And I apologize that I'm like so behind on the chats. When I have my screen shared and I'm looking at your faces, I have to figure out how to pull this stuff up. But okay, so I want to go through, actually, there's some great stuff in here, and I'll do better, you guys, as I do more of these Zooms, to get to you guys as it comes up. But if there's anybody now that just wants to unmute and, just kind of do it like on your own, just be like, okay, I'm gonna speak. Like, we don't have to be super official, but I would just love to have some discussion about, what you guys think about what Tanny Kabbalah had to say in this book, The Weight Loss Surgery Coping Companion. And maybe you've gone through some of these things yourself, or someone, that has. I mean, I just think it's this idea of slowing down and really being mindful about what we're doing every time we make a decision about food. It sounds kind of overwhelming, but the more that I'm studying and reading about this idea of mindfulness in general, about changing behaviors and, becoming more conscious, in our learning, like, I just feel like it's so perfect for this topic of overeating. So I want to give you guys the floor, and tell me what you're thinking, what's on your mind. Anybody? Anybody want to unmute?
I'll go.
Hey, Samantha.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have not had surgery or anything like that, but my best friend right now is actually going through that same issue of eating used to be all the time, what she's making, what she's going to have, and now literally all she can have is just a couple bites, and she's like, I'm done because I'm going to be sick if not. And she has just completely changed her mindset and who she is, and it's just a complete 360 of who she is, and it's so great to see that in somebody. So if it's hard for people now, I just encourage everyone to just push through, because you can get through it. And when you were speaking about the cravings, I put in the chat, I was diagnosed with celiac disease probably about 2 years ago, and all I wanted to do was eat pizza or eat cake or eat a biscuit. Anything that had to do with gluten, I wanted it, and it was because I couldn't have it. And it just made me, when you said about alcohol, it's just, to me, it was just like that, because that's all I wanted to do. And every time I ate it, I got sick, and it was awful over and over again until I put my mind to it. And I realized I have to stop doing this to myself because I'm making myself sick, was when my mindset changed. And so it's just, for anyone having a hard time, just, you can get through it. And the support that you can get from people just like you or anyone out there, that's what'll help get through it. So I just want everybody to know you can get through it.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's amazing. It's a struggle, for a lot of people I know, for sure. And it's this choice that you have to make, like you said, like you were just not being good to yourself, and there's more to it emotionally behind, making that decision of like, this, when I defined the word nourish, about like, it's for our growth and our health, and our good condition. And so it's like every single time, we make a decision to sit down and grab something, to eat, it's like, is this contributing to my growth, my health, and my good condition? And so taking that, applying that mindfulness about what's going into our bodies, like it requires overcoming a lot of emotional stuff, that's driving us in the other direction. And so, I applaud what you have done, because man, is that gluten stuff good. I'm like, I love it too.
It's hard, but just like anybody that's had surgery and a large amount of food makes you sick, the smallest amount of gluten makes me sick. And I have somebody else who's also listening, and she's got thyroid issues, and she's cut gluten out of her diet, and she just feels so much better. And it's just the crazy how much, like, the toxins that are in our body or that we're putting into our body is damaging our insides. So it's hard, but when you realize how terrible you feel after eating something, then you don't want to ever go back to it. So I will find every alternative possible to eat my pizza and my cakes, and there's so much now, so it's pretty good.
And I think the opposite is true too, is that when you do start to eat healthier things on a more regular basis, and you're making those choices instead of the other, that you do start to crave, the healthier food. I mean, like, your
Yes.
body starts getting onto that. And I know, Nancy Vallon has, made posts before, and I've heard her comment that it's like, I no longer crave sugar. And it's just like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't crave sugar? Because like, sugar is such a thing for me, but like, have I ever gotten to the point where I've kind of gotten past that point, like where I've cut out sugar to the degree that I don't crave it anymore? And so, kind of putting yourself up to that challenge of, let me try something long enough to experience the other side. I mean, like, how long have I been at just having sugar, in one form or another, whether it's wine or dessert or, sugar is sugar, where you just continually like have that craving, but like with the healthy stuff. And I mean, Debbie, you and Jeff, I mean, you work with people every day on, nutrition and working out, and like those cravings, like I know you and I share a love for for sugar. So,
your point is really right, though. The minute you start eating like we should eat, nutritious, when we get those nutrients in our body, your body does stop those cravings. But what, Samantha, is that your name? You're so well spoken. It was such a beautiful share. Thank you for that. The struggle's real. You know what I mean? I'm nutritionally balanced. I've been in fitness and nutrition for 30 years. I crave sugar. It's an addiction for me that I definitely have to control. And it's a daily thing, learning to do it and managing it. So it's real. It's a real thing, and I do those cravings. When I start craving, then I know what's going on. Why am I craving this? Why am I mad? Why am I upset? Why am I punishing myself? You know, I try and go through all those things. So I just jumped on, you know, just a few minutes ago, and I'm so sorry. I feel like I missed so much. I was on another Zoom. I really love this. This is so great, Chris, and you're doing such a great job with this. This is amazing. Everybody needs and deserves to hear all of this.
Thank you. Wow. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, I don't know, Debbie, do you ever, you know, do you catch yourself like this idea of slowing down and being mindful about like what's going on? You know, it's like we're in this fast pace all the time and kind of used to like whatever the habit is, I'm just going to grab this, grab that, but to actually like stop and like think, you know, like use like, what are your thoughts? What is happening in my head right now that I'm getting ready to do this? Because like what I find sometimes too is that like when I do something out of habit, I'm like in the middle of eating it and it's kind of like, what? Like I haven't even thought about it, you know, when I'm halfway into the bag of bugles. But it's like, well, what am I doing this for? Like, this doesn't even taste as good. Like, I really don't want this. And, you know, this idea that, that the lady who wrote this book, like talks about, you know, asking your body, what do you want? What does my body need to feel nourished? That for me, it's like, oh, well, that's a fantastic concept. You know? Like I should actually think about what I want to eat instead of just like reaching, you know, for the first thing.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Yes. And I have stopped in the middle of something and went, this doesn't even taste good.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going and see if I can make it taste good. I mean, that's ridiculous because there is scientific proof that you don't taste after the third or fourth bite, right?
Really?
So there is that too. So now I'm just doing this. Why?
Yeah.
I'm not really tasting it anymore. So I have gotten in the middle of something because it's habit. I have gotten in the middle of something and went, this doesn't even taste good. It doesn't taste right. And I have continued. I also have done the other went, throw it away. It doesn't taste right. So who cares? Get rid of it. I also have gone into a craving, stopped, slowed down. What's going on? What do I need? What's going, blah, 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 blah. I've done that. I've sat and okay, forget it. I'm doing it anyway. I've done that too. And you know, Samantha, celiac disease and you get really sick. I have had in the past pancreatic problems. And so there's things I can't, shouldn't, not supposed to eat because I'll be in a lot of pain or in ER for days. You know, I'll be admitted to the hospital, but sometimes that hasn't stopped me. So, I mean, in the past, I'm so much better now, but I understand all of that. I understand it all. Been there. I don't know where she went. I lost her.
Yeah, fine.
Maybe she had to go. But you know, it's like it's just really intriguing to me, our minds and what we do to ourselves and why we do it when we absolutely know we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah. Making these conscious choices, I think is, you know, what it's all about. And I think it also, when you think about, you know, being good to yourself, I mean, the very first Zoom, we talked about the gifts of imperfection, which, you know, Debbie, I know you read that too at Follow Your Bliss, that, you know, loving yourself through the process. Like, I mean, we're going to mess up and have bad days and make that wrong choice, and you know, like it's okay, but the success is, you know, when we've slowed down enough times to start to consider what we're doing consciously, right? Like I emotionally, that has to help me, you know, be able to like celebrate myself, that it's like, no, today was a really good day. I like every single choice I made was consciously a good one. And I feel better than I did yesterday. Like physically, I feel better. Emotionally, I feel more empowered. I feel like I did a good job, like, you know, pat on the back, good job, Chris. You know, like everything about being conscious and mindful about, you know, what we're doing is just good for us. And I think it just continues to get easier and easier the more we're able to do that. But it's just, you know, it's completely against how most of us have lived, you know, our whole lives. Like we just do the habit, you know, living according to this past time self of, you know, we had this great experience at some point in the past that led us to believe that this was the desire that we have, and this is really what I want to eat, when it may have nothing to do with what I want, like right now, you know, in the present. And so like being able to kind of slow down, like we're getting ready to eat, everybody's going out to eat, everybody's going, oh, let's go, we're in the restaurant, we sit down, like slow down. Like, what am I really hungry is the first, like, am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? Like, do I have the hunger pain? Like, go through the list that she gave. Like, do I have a hollow feeling in my stomach? You know, am I feeling weak or dizzy or nauseous? Like, if the answer is no, I'm not physically hungry, then go through the list of emotional things. Like, am I sad right now? Like, do I feel like I'm stressed out and I'm ready to just like gorge on something because I've been going a mile a minute and I'm stressed out and I need to eat? I mean, I have a friend who came out and said, I know I'm a stress eater. And I was like, well, A, you're committed to being one. So like you're going, you know what I mean? Like, one, you need to like stop saying that you're a stress eater because you're owning that, right? Like, let's not say that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, but B, like, it's kind of like, it's awesome that you said that because you've already identified that you're like, that you eat when you're stressed. So like, how many times, like, you already know that, like, you've already done like the first half of the work of like, what is happening right now that's causing me to make this choice? Like, am I stressed out? Am I sad? Have I not had enough sleep? I mean, things that aren't even like, don't beat yourself up about it. You know, sometimes like there are things going on in our life. Like, have I been eating less than usual? That's causing me to have cravings for something. Like, maybe I need to just pay attention to how much I've been eating. So I just thought it was great that she kind of gave just like a really nice, like factual, you know, list of things, like a checklist of things to go through, to be aware of. That just, it raises your awareness of kind of where you are and the choices that you're making. And, so I just love the book. Like I said, whether you've had surgery, you know, weight loss surgery or not, I'll flash this up. It was on a slide, but if you joined later, it's called the Weight Loss Surgery Coping Companion. And so again, a lot of, you know, dealing with a lot of emotions that again, having been through surgery, these emotions existed before surgery and they existed after that, you know, and so it's not like you lose 100 pounds and all the emotional crap goes away. And that's why probably almost anybody that you guys might know that have had surgery is probably in the process of gaining it back or in a freaking panic that it's going to be coming back soon. And like, I get it. I've done it. Like, I do it, you know, like it's, there's some good stuff in here. But I just think this idea of mindfulness was really huge to me. So, anybody else?
I really, real fast, I even wrote it down on my calendar on my desk. I love eating is not an event. That for me, I've always said that our society sets us up with that. Church outings, picnics, like they make it all about the food. And then the people we hang out with, if they're all about the food, then we're setting ourselves up for that failure because now we're hanging around all of that. So it is being mindful of that eating is not an event, and reward yourself with something that's not food and go hang out with your friends to hang out. Because here's the thing, we're stuffing our mouth. We're not building a relationship with our friends because we're stuffing our mouth. We can't even talk. We can't listen because we're stuffing our mouth, right? So now we're really hiding behind that. So eating is not an event. And I think when we that's a game changer right there. So when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. I highlighted it and everything. That is brilliant. And I think that's a great thing to remember. I have a very close family member that everything we do when we hang out has to be planned around the 3 meals a day. Where are we going to go for lunch? What are we going to have for lunch? Do you have anything to snack on? What are we having for dinner? Where are we going to go for dinner? That's what they're all about. That's it. They have nothing else. That's it. Eating's an event. So I
And
think
a lot of it, like my family was like that too. Like growing up, it's no wonder, but it's like you come home for the holidays and literally it's like, we got to go to the grocery store. Well, what do you want for dinner? Well, what about tomorrow? Well, what do you want to do for lunch tomorrow? Well, and I'm like, I don't know. Like it's tomorrow. Like, let's figure it out, tomorrow. But it's this pattern, right? Of like, that's what we're used to doing. It's how we grew up. I mean, I know Italians are even, it's like, like it's all about eating. Like, oh, you sit down and have something to eat. But I'm telling you, this book deals with depression. And you guys, like, again, I'm going to say this and people are going to think I'm off my rocker. Like, there were times where I cried after surgery because I would be done after a few bites. And I was like, what do I do now?
yeah.
The event of the meal was no longer and like would never be a part of my life again. So for me, like to emotionally pour into food, the food wasn't there anymore. And so it was like, what do I do now? That I can't make it this event that's gonna make me feel all warm and fuzzy and cuddly and like, man, was that brownie sundae just made me feel so much better. Like I couldn't have that anymore. So, it's a real thing that like switching, changing your mind that what you put in your mouth truly is, I mean, you again, like go back and look at the slide, like nourishment. It's for like for your good health, for your growth, and your good condition. You think about like your thoughts. Like, how do we nourish our thoughts? Like, if it's not something that is contributing to good health, our good condition, or our growth, then like what are we doing? Why are we thinking it? Like, why are we eating this stuff? Like, it's just not good for us. And I just love, I mean, I just feel like crying every time I talk about Danielle McKinnon, Brene Brown. I know I said that before, but of the Gifts of Imperfection, like that book, I mean, just had me sobbing every time I pull it out, because it is so about worthiness, and these decisions at the core is when you have the choice to do A or B. At the end of the day, it is like, do you want to be good to yourself and love yourself through this process, or do you want to be bad to yourself and do something that you're going to look back on and be like, why did I do that? And that, I mean, it's a huge thing. Like, it's not like one time and I got it, like it's an every single day. Let me try this again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. So anyway, somebody who asked, Samantha, no, I did not have the sleeve. I do have friends that have had the gastric sleeve, but I actually had the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. I wanted to go as severe as I was like, whatever is, I don't want to come back. I don't have a band adjusted. I want like go for the gusto, because I was so desperate to lose weight that I, obviously did not know about isogenics at the time and felt like I had tried just about everything else out there and didn't see another way. So, now having people, leaders, a part of this group and this call. And I mean, when people walk the stage for the 100-pound club, I mean, I just like, it's like tears, like just strolling down, because, people are doing it every day, and it's incredible. Had I known, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have had it, but, good stuff. What else, guys? Where are we on time? Almost 9. Couple more minutes. Does anybody else have a share. Hey, Jason, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes, Chris, it's a pleasure to
Welcome
see.
back.
I wanted to thank you so much for sharing tonight your story, because I have not had the experience that you have had, but I'm sure it'll help me to relate to more people. I heard it a long time ago that uh, good counsel to say to take what was your misery and make it your ministry. And so your words tonight are an inspiration. I when we were talking about state of mind, being mindfulness, uh, anything to do with our thoughts is I believe there's an emotional component that is also connected to a spiritual component. We have a spirit nature. Um, um, it's one of my mentors taught me a while back. He said that where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And he defined abuse as being abnormal use. Abuse. Okay, so and not knowing purpose will always result in abusing the thing that we're using. So and I see that I can't say I've had addictions to food, but I've also had addictive behaviors, and so I think I understand that to some degree. And each and every time that I have turned back, had an opportunity to go back to my former life, I always regretted it and felt that I didn't know why. I didn't know why I turned to that. But it was always a poor substitute. I always felt it was a poor substitute for something I was really searching for. And I think underlying spiritual condition is a need, an unmet need, and a search for truth. What is the true purpose and true nature? What is my nature? What is my real hunger?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really, I'm curious as to whether the author spoke to that in any way. So that's all.
Thank you. There's actually, you guys remember Carney Wilson? That was kind of Wilson Phillips, and she had, I think it was gastric bypass, and then she like gained, I don't know if it was all the way back, but a lot of it back. And then she had another surgery, but she wrote some books in the process of that. And one of them was called I'm Still Hungry. And I think I might have given it to someone because I was looking for it the other day. But it's really interesting that, like it doesn't matter if it's isogenics, if it's weight loss surgery, if it's, Weight Watchers. It's like if there's no shift in our thinking about why we're making the decisions that we're making, so you talk about like a purpose, like what is the purpose of our bodies? I mean, like we're around for, how long, like our life doesn't last forever. Right. So it's like, we should be like, not just good to our bodies because we want to walk around in the healthiest shell, that we have, like, but to be good to our spirit, at the same time, like can I really fulfill my purpose if emotionally and spiritually, like I'm like making decisions that are bad for me, and that I'm just kind of like beating up on myself, all the time. I mean, like that, it drains you, and then again, like just to be, cognizant of like, God, I've been so bad to my body, lately. Like it's just, yeah, I feel sore and I feel tired and I don't have any energy. And it's like all of these things that it's like, okay, well, I'm responsible, for doing that. So, I just love this, slowing down, being mindful, and, mindful, really focusing on that internal experience is what she says. What focus on the internal experience that you're having. And when you think about like internally, ask your body, talk to your body, what are you saying to me? What are you hungry for? Am I physically hungry, or am I sad, right now? Like make a conscious decision about what's happening. So, all right. Well, I think we're coming up on time, you guys. Thank you so, so very much for jumping on and participating. I always remind everybody this is open to people who are Isagenix users and who are not. So I think we have some, great things to say about Isagenix products and how beneficial they've been for our bodies. But I know other people have had success with other things, and that's fine too. So there's still, a lot of people in the world that are struggling with issues around, compulsive overeating and severe obesity. So if there's anybody, yes, I did record, and I will post it in the group. I think I need to post I'm not sure if I posted the one from 2 weeks ago or not, but we'll, resume in 2 weeks. And we do have a guest host on April, I think it's April 5th, so 2 weeks from now. W.K. Jones wrote a book called Your Journey to the Extraordinary. And he, has been at some of our personal development retreats and is just an incredibly inspiring person who's got an amazing story around weight loss and, transformation of many kinds. And so he has graciously agreed to host our next call because he has some amazing points in his book that are for sure going to be beneficial to this group. So I'm super excited. So make sure that you guys, mark your calendars for 2 Wednesdays from now. Again, I think it's April 5th. And tell people, if you know somebody, you're talking to somebody that's is struggling with this, just say, hey, jump on, see what you think, put them in the group. Anybody can join the group. Just add them. Just if you're in the LiveFULLy group, just if you're Facebook friends, add a member, put them in there. And it's just full of fantastic inspiration, from a lot of amazing people. So thank you all so much, and have a good rest of your Wednesday night, what's left of it. And we'll see you in the group.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.